Gonti has always been one of my favourite cards, and everyone in my playgroup knows it. It's fallen by the wayside a lot in power level since its first printing, so I was so glad to see they had a new commander card. The precon isn't how I'd like it though. There's a lot of cards that don't fit the bill and mostly fall into the camps of too expensive. Gonti essentially draws a card each time you deal combat damage up to 3 times per combat. If our game plan is working, our mana will be too busy to cast a Brainstealer Dragon or Thieving Amalgam, however good they are once they resolve. Plus, if I'm playing a steel deck, I want to play my opponent's expensive cards, not my own. So I've made 30 cuts and I'm going to walk you through them to inspire your own Gonti build. Most of the cards in the base deck over 5 mana are out, along with a few creatures, mana sources, and cards I just don't really like. Felix or Oren might be good, but Gonti already costs 5 mana, so doubling up on 5 drops isn't what I want to do. So what do we add? Well, the deck list looks lacking in 2 main areas for me: evasion and interaction. Cheap Evasive Threats lets Gonti's ability go off more consistently, and playing more of our own interaction gives us time to get there by keeping our opponents at bay. First, let's go over some of our evasive improvements. I'm most excited to cast Mana Gorger Hydra again, as I haven't found space for it in a while, although it actually might be good in Karametra. Anyway, by the time Gonti hits, this should easily have enough trample damage to get through. We then have 2 great Landwalk cards, which might not always be unblockable, but are great when they are. Thada can give us our opponents slowing most of the time, and Dryad ramps us up and gives us an attack of a Gonti. We can even politic with it if someone is really struggling for land, since weirdly any player can get the land, or just if we want to be able to attack with it with the Forest Walk if nobody else is playing green. This is a weird card that does a lot of stuff. And if we happen to get these 2 cards combined, if there's no other island players for example, we could donate them this Forest Island to search for a solving and actually come positive on mana? Pretty weird. I've also bumped our flyer count as a great way to get in some extra Gonti hits. Spectre is hard to cast but on theme, Stormtamer can protect our Gonti while being a great attacker, and Scavenger offers always welcome lifelink. I don't know how good Dalek Squadron is on paper, but Menace Myriad is a great combo for Gonti, and I always try to include some Doctor Who where I can. In addition, since this deck has quite a few ninjutsu cards, being able to ninjutsu the Myriad tokens is quite strong. Grima is unblockable as is and lets us cast our opponent's spells for the pleasure of attacking, and Cryptic Coat was a card I loved at first sight, but a 3-2 unblockable is hard to justify in most commander decks, so I was very glad when Gonti was the perfect combo. Kaito is our sole planeswalker, as he makes an unblockable creature on entry, then sticks around for at least long enough to draw 1 more card. Lightning Greaves might not look like evasion, but in this deck evasion essentially means let's Gonti trigger, and if you give Gonti haste the turn they come in, a 5/5 doesn't guarantee a hit, but it's likely to get through to someone. Finally, Brazen Borer is a great segue as it lets us keep mana up to either play another evasive threat or bounce a card if we need to interact. Next up is my interaction. We come to 11 sources, which is still a little low, but better than the base deck. The weirdest of which is Steel Enchantment, which is niche, but as soon as I saw the card and imagined what it can do for just 2 mana, I had to try it out. Why destroy an enchantment with Feed the Swarm when you can just have it? Beyond that, Binding the Old Gods is a personal favourite, and the third mode that's usually irrelevant is pretty good here, as the extra Death Touch can make it easier to deal damage. Drown in the Dock is likewise another favourite, as it's flexible as removal and a counterspell, so long as a few spells have already been cast. Speaking of, the base deck had no counterspell, so I added Negate and Memory Lapse, mostly because I seem to have run out of Arcane Denials and I'm too cheap for Fierce Guardianship. In the same vein, Power Word Kill doesn't really kill enough, ironically, but I haven't got around to ordering this card yet, so it'll do for now. And finally, Pylon seems good with our variety of cheap creatures to help cast it. So far as ramp, the deck does have a pretty good selection, but includes a free visit with no non-basic forests, so I did have to fix that. Otherwise, I added Sakura Tri-Builder, as there's a small chance you don't sacrifice it and manage to get a Gonti trigger. Otherwise, I have Gwenna, as they untap from Gonti and can either then attack for a trigger or maybe let you play a 3 mana creature from an opponent. Finally, Inga lets all our evasive threats tap for mana if we happen to steal a creature, or while drawing us card and letting us stay up for blocks if we need to. The mana base in this deck is actually pretty good in the precon, and I've not changed much. I cut an island and a forest for some double face cards, and a path for another tri-land. I had a spare Takenuma, so why not add it, and finally temples are going for something 3 visits can fetch. I have got 1 tomb spare, but no breeding pool or anything else, so there's this tap land. Finally, I've removed a few stealing cards, as Gonti's cost reduction is enough with some cheaper cards, but I had to add Praetor's Grasp, as while I don't love tutors, it's something special to do it from your opponent's deck, especially if what you get costs 1 less. And that's more or less 30 cards. Is that all? Is the deck perfect? Well, no. As I said, some of these changes are just what I have at hand. The evasion I've added leans a bit too hard on free drops as well, and I need to get my hands on a few 1 or 2 mana cards to replace some frees. I'm also not sure how good some of the expensive ninjutsu cards are, but I want to cast them. so I'll find out and figure it out later. My changes raised the budget of the deck by about $100, but a lot of that is packed into a few lands, Thada and Praetor's Grasp, which make up $60 and are by no means essential, leaving the remaining changes at a respectable $40 increase. I would say Thada's probably the best of these, as the line of turn 3 Thada, turn 4 cast a Gonti, attack with Thada, steal a Solving, cast a Solving for free, and then have basically free mana to cast whatever you stole is very good. In terms of where I'll be going after day 1, I'm looking to get quite a few 1 and 2 mana evasive cards, and I found a unique suite that are cards that have some nice utility if you pay a bit of extra mana or do some work for them, but still offer that evasion. So watch this space, for I might be making another video in the future. And something like Suspicious Stowaway is just perfect for this deck, but I can't bring myself to play Day-Night as a singleton, so it'll stay in my bulk box. I've talked in general terms about what I've removed, but if you want to see exactly what I've removed or where the deck goes from here, there's a Moxfield list in the description, and I'll be leaving the sideboard as cards cut from the pre-con deck list. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Coming up is a budget version of my favourite deck.